Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's been a minute since I've done an NHL 22 video. I wanted to play through the entire closed technical test to really give my thoughts on where the game is at currently and what you guys have all seen so far in its development, as we are about a month away from NHL 22. Guys, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for the most up-to-date NHL 22 news and info, and catch me live on Twitch. I go live every single day at noon Eastern time. Link is down below. All right, so let's go over and discuss the big changes and things that were really noticeable in the closed technical test. Obviously, it was just World of Chell. You guys couldn't play 1v1 or Versus or HUD or anything like that. So if you are a 1v1 player, you probably didn't get a great experience out of it just because it's not really the main game mode that you played. Much like I don't really play EASHL anymore. I haven't since about NHL 19. But I can comment on the things that I paid attention to and really focused on in the beta. I guess let's talk about the bad first of all. So passing was a polarizing topic on social media, specifically on Twitter. Everyone either loved or hated how passing was working in the beta. In my opinion, it created the first skill gap that we've had for passing in an NHL game, and I don't know how long, maybe 10, 15 years. And what I mean by that is that you have to actually aim your pass. And moreover, you have to actually hold down the button for the correct amount of time. No longer can you just hold down R2 and fire a rifle pass 4 feet beside you and receive it cleanly, because it either miss if you don't aim it correctly, or because it's too hard, they're not going to receive it cleanly. I personally love any time that there is a skill gap introduced in NHL. I feel that anytime that happens, it really separates, the average from the great or the good. And I think that that's really what you need in sports games. Because if not, then what we're left with is just basically random bounces and whoever gets the luckiest shot on goal for the most part. And anytime you had a skill gap, that, limits that less and less. However, when it comes to the passing, puck receptions were an absolute disaster. So while I agree that the passing is okay and I like it in terms of aiming and how hard you hold it down and all of that, the receiving of the passes is in my eyes, broken, because you would have a perfect pass. It wasn't hard, wasn't slow, and you would have to kick it off his skates or bounce off his stick. It did not make sense to me, and it was really fighting receiving the puck cleanly, and I'm hoping that gets addressed. It's been mentioned. It's probably the most mentioned request and feedback in terms of gameplay from the beta. So I guess we can talk about the graphics now, as well as when we got the gameplay trailer. Again, guys, I have no idea why it looked so rough in that trailer, because I've been playing the alpha and those builds prior, as testing for the Game Changer program. My goodness, it looked a lot better. Graphics on a PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, you really notice the kind of brightness and really nice layering that the Frostbite engine, allowed you to have. I will say this, though. The old-gen games, I didn't play any personally, but I saw a few people that did, and I'm not, it does look like, you're starting to see how the new consoles are really going to take over in terms of power compared to the old-gen. That being said, it didn't kill it. It wasn't like the old-gen games looked absolutely brutal. You could just tell that there was definitely a difference in terms of the power of the consoles. Not to mention the speed of the menus. So the menu in World of Chell was a big feature that was added in this year. No longer did you have to go through 4 different menus to get to the dressing room. It was all right there. You could come and go with your team. You could go to any mode. You can go to your rewards. You can check your stats, all without leaving the dressing room. And that was incredible. When we saw the trailer for it, everyone agreed that was a phenomenal change, and it was. On next gen, it worked pretty flawlessly for me. I didn't really experience any issues. However, on old gen, it does seem pretty slow. And again, I don't think that's the game's issue. I think it's just you're seeing the difference on the new gen console or the old gen. So you got to remember that. The X factors. I want to talk about the X factors real quick, because I tested out this sniper. I tested out sniper, and I wanted to see how Make It Snappy worked. If you guys don't know what Make It Snappy was, or you missed it, that was the one that is shown in the trailer with Artemi Panarin, and basically you just have to flick up, and he gets a really big boost to his wrist shot power and accuracy. And that kind of scared me, because if that is in 1v1 and you have a player that's, an icon or someone really high rated overall, that's basically just an auto goal and it takes no skill at all. That one really scared me. However, I didn't really notice it going in. And moreover, I found that it was kind of awkward to pull off. We've been so ingrained in our minds to take wrist shots, and you don't realize that when you're skating and you're going to shoot, that you set your shot before you shoot. And what I mean by that is, let's say you have a left-handed player and you hold your stick out to the left and then fire. That's a wrist shot. Make It Snappy doesn't work like that. You basically just have to aim and flick up, and it was kind of awkward to pull off. However, I didn't notice anything huge from it, and now that might be because my next point, it seems like EASHL goaltenders are back to what they were like in NHL 20, where they could really just sit on the goal line and you weren't able to snipe, which is a huge, kind of issue going backwards, because in NHL 21, it finally made it viable to actually pick your corners on a goaltender if he's sitting too deep in his crease, and I really hope that they adjust that in NHL 22. Now let's talk about, really the biggest issue with NHL 22. No matter how many improvements they put into the game, the downfall is always going to be the 4 separate consoles. And you have to realize that the beta is kind of at its peak. That's exciting. You get the most hardcore players. And man, after like 3 days, it was really hard to find a game on PS5. And I can only imagine if you're a European player playing with an Xbox, that's probably the least played console and region in the world for NHL. And it is my biggest fear of the game. And now all EA games are not cross-console, EA sports games. So it has been addressed. I saw an article talking with an EA executive in regards to their financial report, and that he had mentioned in that all 22 or 23 year series games will be cross-console. So there's hope for that still. But this one, NHL is impacted more than any other game, except maybe UFC. But that hasn't been released or anything like that. So NHL, it's going to be awfully tough come early December and late February, where you're just not going to find games. And if you do, I think it's worse the better player you are, because the higher up in the division that you go for rivals, if it works the same, you're really playing a certain amount of play. If you watch my streams last year, I played, because it's server-based, you connect to a server that's closest to you have the best connection. You're playing the same 5 to 10 people, and it was awful. I literally had to buy a router that allowed me to select which server I selected to get some different opponents. Not because it was too hard, just I wanted to play different people. Every single day I play this game, I don't want to play the same people. You guys are probably going to experience it worse than me, because if you don't have a Nighthawk, and again, you can Google and Netgear Nighthawk router that allows you to select your server. And in NHL, it's valuable in a sense, because again, what's going to happen is you are going to see just extreme wait times, and I cannot wait for it to be cross-console. It's such a brutal thing in NHL specifically, and no matter how much good they do, it is always going to come back to that. So we'll see, but I notice long wait times even in the beta, and that scares the hell out of me. I also want to discuss some other things about X Factors, and again, I'm mostly tiered to the 1v1 play. HUD is what I'm creating all my content about. And I'm just thinking more and more about which X factors are going to be important early on. And after playing the beta, I noticed that defensive awareness is really important, and it always has been. But in NHL 21, even if you had high defensive awareness, passes were just forced through. I played in an esports tournament this weekend on NHL 21, and it was I was extremely happy that I hated the game and couldn't wait for 22, in the sense that if you had decent defensive awareness and you were in position, you were intercepting that pass. There was no forces through the middle, and I really, really love that, because that was NHL 21's biggest issue, in my opinion. It took no skill to just fire a pass through 4 people and end up with a goal. In 22, because of that new stick layer, you really noticed intercepts, and when you had defensive awareness or that tuned really high, it was extremely difficult to get a pass through against anyone, and that leads me to believe that I'm wondering if defensive X factors are going to be the most important. Some of the X factors, like Austin Matthews Make It Snappy, is super situational. Like, how many times in a game are you going to have Austin Matthews in a spot where you toe drag into a shot? It is just, and people are going to play you for that. It's just not nearly as advantageous as having a top pairing defenseman that has, let's say, quick pick and has high defensive awareness, and it can just, eat up any pass that's in his area. I think that the meta might geared towards that, but that's going to take some more testing in 1v1. So in the end, there was some positives, and there also was some negatives. I have never, in my 4 years of being a game changer, guys, I have never seen the community so split in terms of a game. The one thing that you can say about NHL 22 compared to 21 is that it's different. There is no way that you will load into 21 and then go to 22 and feel like it's the exact same game. It just won't. Now, that is not always a great thing. I think that I have never seen the community so split. It's not it's not, yeah, the game isn't bad. It's either I hate it or I love it. And it's going to be interesting to watch the community once you get the full game and see how it plays out once, the full release of the game. I think a lot of that comes to just people don't like change. I mean, it's normal. You get really used to something and then you don't want it changed. And like I said, the gameplay is far different. That defensive awareness and intercepting a passes is going to drastically change how the game is played. Not to mention holding down the A or X button and protecting the puck. There was a big advantage to being able to do that effectively in 22. And it's just exciting to see. I personally am happy that the game is different. I think that it was getting kind of stale, and this is going to be different no matter what, no matter way you look at it. And I don't say that, I don't mean that it's going to be great. I just mean that it is literally going to be different. There's no way to say that 21 is the same as 22. But guys, let me know what your comments are in the comment section down below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for the most up-to-date NHL 22 content. And I'll see you next time. Have a good one.